In the next few videos, we're going to be creating this to-do list app with all the knowledge we have gained so far. So you see, it's pretty beautiful looking. It has a text field and it has a submit button over here. So when I, let's say, add the list of items that I want to do, let's say code JavaScript is one of the tasks that I have, I can click this button and this task is going to be added to my list. I can add other tasks, let's say read Mozilla docs. All right, so I can just hit enter instead of using my mouse. I can also hit enter and it's gonna also work exactly as expected. Beautifully, it has a separator between the two options, and of course, let's say third task, I'll just enter and I can remove any of the tasks that I want. So let's say if I want to remove the first item, I can just delete it and it's going to be gone from the list. Now, a to-do list app is a very classic example to teach you and for you to do because it contains all of the different pieces that one developer may need to interact with and to test its knowledge, creating elements, working with events, and removing elements, and then displaying them correctly. These are all the features that we're going to be building together from scratch. So to get started, I have some code over here, which I'm going to just put this on the side. So I have some code in my HTML, which I'm going to walk you through, which we're going to be having that as a starting point. And then we're going to write all the app.js code from scratch, okay? So let's start with the index.html, what you will be getting started with. So this is simply some boilerplate header element, and I've imported a style.css. And in the body, I'm simply having a div with a class of app. That's just a container, right? Starts here and ends over here. And also I have a script element with app.js as a file imported. Now the app.js we're going to be coding line by line together. Now taking a look at what is inside the app div with the class of app, I simply have a header which shows up over here, and then I have a form. All right, you see a form, and the form has a class of add. It has two items. One is the input text field, that's the text field over here, and this is the button. So the input with the type of submit is mentioned over here, so we can actually submit this information we want to save. Now then we have a sibling to the form, which is a div element with the ID as list, and it has a unordered list which is totally empty with a class of to-do. So the reason I've added all these IDs and classes so that I can use them to style over here. So you see, this is a lot of styles, and since this is not a tutorial for CSS, if you want to study that, there's an HTML and CSS course for that. You should really take a look at that. So that's what makes this thing beautiful, all right? So let's say if I remove all of these styles, so I'm going to just delete it, save, and now refresh, you see the app is simply very basic. The power of making beautiful websites is really in CSS and the way you lay out your HTML. So the functionality is still going to work. So let's say I say code, blah, 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 hit enter, it still works, but it's not beautiful. I do something else, add, it still works. It's functionally 100% there because functionality comes from JavaScript and design comes from CSS. And the layout, so you see the layout is still the same. That comes from HTML. So these are three distinct pieces that when put together makes a beautiful looking web application. So I'm going to revert back and put my styles back so you can study them line by line. They're not complicated at all. So I'm going to save, refresh, and it's back to beautiful looking. All right. Now I'm going to actually remove all of this code, save, and now I'm going to refresh. You see the design is still the same, but none of the functionality is going to work. So you see I do this and nothing happens, right? If I try to hit enter, nothing happens. So this is a good starting point for us to move forward. And now let's build the functionality with all the knowledge we have gained so far. So let's get started.